All right. Good afternoon, folks. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. This is none other than Nigel Johnson with you all this afternoon. I appreciate you all tuning in. Want to give special thanks and shout out to Mr. Holland Daphne's. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to be amongst you people today. Great and greatly appreciate it. I give God thanks as well. So just as I jump into this, just kind of want to, before the plane takes off, just kind of want to make sure I cover a lot of the landing gear and a lot of the preliminaries. Just make sure that you all, as you get familiar with who I am, right, I help you all to understand really what I stand for and who is really in front of you. Because I don't take it lightly to be having your attention for these few minutes. It's greatly appreciated. So, a lot of things, just a little bit about me. I'm a God-fearing man. I'm a behavioral health professional / counselor. So I work with people, work with children daily, in and out, from work to play, to pleasure, to mentoring, to church, various places. So near and dear to my heart, to say the least. People as a whole. I would also say with that, I'm also a former board of director with NAMI Palm Beach County. NAMI stands for National Alliance on Mental Illnesses. And so that's kind of one of the things that we were talking about today. I'm also a mental health, behavioral health advocate. So that's some of the things that as I, break down kind of what I stand for, who I am, what I represent, you'll see that come to life over the next few weeks and time that we're together. So, with that being said, I kind of want to just lay the groundwork as we go into what my topic is for today specifically. And I entitled it, if I could title it anything, I would say, what does love have to do with it? And, this is, especially themed and centered for our Caribbean communities. And, it's not just that being said, so it's parenting in the Caribbean communities. And, also I'll add that I'm of Jamaican descent, but I love, and I get along with various races and ethnic backgrounds and cultures and communities and just various likes, Jamaicans, Haitian, Bajans, I should say, excuse me, Barbados people. I love you guys. But the thing is, it's varies wherever you're from, right? Love doesn't cost a thing. Love it. And just being able to be kind, that doesn't have any language barrier. And so with that being said, I want to dive into what it means and what it feels like to be in our culture. Because a lot of times the things that we're seeing nowadays, especially that are pressing and are really affecting the lives of our children, as we call it, mental health, right? I just want to go ahead and talk about it. And I'll keep on saying it because mental health is a stigma. There's a huge stigma on what that is, especially in communities, in the Caribbean communities. No one wants to talk about it. It's a bad thing. It's a bad word. Mental means you're crazy. No, that does not. Mental is having to do with your mind, but I like to really talk about our brain health. How are we taking care of our brains? How are we taking care of our minds? What are we feeding our minds? What's infecting our minds? How we think about ourselves, how we think about other people. Let's take a different spin to what mental health is. It's not just, my mind and I'm losing my mind. No, mental health is what's affecting my mind. Are you sleeping at night? Are you getting enough rest? There's a recommendation that says between 7 to 9 hours of sleep is what the average person is supposed to be getting every night. So if you're not getting anywhere near that, or if you're like myself, sometimes you struggle to get half of those 9 hours every night just because of life's demands. That affects the brain. If the brain's not getting to recalibrate and reset, then you're running off of low fuel. So with that being said, that begins to affect the mind, the brain. Just imagine if you never shut your computer down. That computer would eventually die. Same thing being said with the mind. If it's not taken care of, it begins to deteriorate. And that's our mental, that's our brain health. So once again, that's mental health, but not in the scope of what we're used to. So I kind of wanted to lay that foundation and framework, right? But you may ask, okay, so now what does this have to do with Caribbean households? What does it have to do with Caribbean parenting? What does love have to do with any of this? I love my kids. I provide for them. There's food on the table. Yes. But when was the last time you told your son or daughter that I love you? When was the last time you gave them a hug? When was the last time you showed up to any of their sports games? When was the last time you allowed them just to express themselves and tell you what's going on? Or if like in my community or in my culture, in my home, you grew up feeling like you can't really say anything. You don't have a voice, or if you do share something, you're being reprimanded for speaking. So there begins some of those little things where Nigel begins to feel like, okay, it's bad to talk, or it's bad to have a different of opinion than other people. So then what happens there is that affects your self-esteem. And these things don't happen overnight. In my Jamaican, for my Jamaican, people, you recognize the saying where it says a little level a whole lump, which means that things just don't happen overnight, little by little. So think about this: if you were hearing this from your 5-year-old, and you just keep growing up, now you're 25, and now you're not confident in doing much, because as a child you were taught to be in the room, but no one to know that you're in the room, because a child is supposed to stay in a child's place. So now you're 25 years old and you have no confidence in going out and stepping out into doing different things, starting that business, or to make mistakes, because you were taught indirectly that it's not okay to make mistakes. Now, with all of this being said, I'll put a disclaimer out there. I love my parents. I've extended grace to my parents because I understand parents, especially in our Caribbean cultures, you can only go with what you grew with. So what you know is based off of what your parents taught you or what your grandparents taught you. So as I've gotten older, I understand that, hey, all you knew growing up was your grandfather, went out and he cooked. He went out and did what he needed to do in the land. He tilled the land, or he went out into the market and he provided. In that sense, that's all dads would do. They were the providers. Mothers would stay at home, grandmothers stay at home and cook, take care of the children, take care of the house. So as far as parents, our foreparents are concerned, they're providing. They love you, which is fine. However, as there's what we call Maslow's hierarchy of need for our psychology majors, or just those that really specialize in dealing with the mind and the needs of persons, and we as persons individually. There's a few things that we need in order to survive, in order to thrive. There's a security, a sense of feeling that you're safe. There's so many different things that are involved in this. So with that being said, you're growing up in a household where you don't feel loved. Your parents scold you. They don't tell you why they're scolding you. They may tell you, like I remember my parents, spanking me, giving me reprimand, corporal punishment for things that I may have done. And they tell you, the only response to you is that, I love you, this is why I'm doing this. Which is one thing, but it's never seen as, okay, but why did you do this? Or why am I doing this? So in other words, I'm having to, as a child, grow up keeping feelings to myself, right? Keeping sadness to myself, not being able to express myself. When nowadays, what I believe in is allowing your children to respectfully express themselves. Because the minute your children stop talking to you, then you have a problem. Because now they're starting to turn, because just because they stop talking to you, I'm talking to my Caribbean community, our parents, these parents, right? Once your children stop talking to you, you've lost them. It doesn't mean that because they stop talking to you that they've lost interest in whatever the concern that they brought to you. That just means that they stopped talking to you. Now they start to seek out the World Wide Web. They start to seek out social media. They start to seek out advice and counsel from their friends, which, as we know, a lot of times is not the best advice. But the thing about it is this: what I encourage parents nowadays, and I'll put this disclaimer out there, parents, I'm only speaking to this because I want to see us as a community, as a world, make changes to what we call breaking the generational curses. Now, I don't like to say call curses, but in a sense of saying that this is how it's always been done. At what point in time do we change that narrative? Right? I let that sink in. At what time, or what part, who changes that? Yes, this is what grandma and grandpa knew, but what I believe is that with each generation, with each time, there's advancement of knowledge. So now you know better. Our job is to do better. So that's one of my reasons, one of my desires why I'm here today, sharing this opportunity, sharing this time, sharing what I've gained with everybody else, because I believe that it's important for us as a community, us as younger, generations, to do differently with our children. Allow your children to have a voice. Even as crazy or as outlandish as it may seem or sound, the crazy conversations, allow your children to be confident and comfortable sharing stuff with you. I know you and your spouse, your significant other may have your different of opinions, but have those conversations, you and your partner, outside of your kids. But let them talk in your presence. Hear where their minds are. Hear where their hearts are. Allow them to tell you the frustrations, the things that they're seeing at school, the gender stuff, right? How they're feeling about, a relationship. Don't discourage them or talk bad to them or make them feel like it's not okay to feel, especially as a boy. It's okay for our young boys to cry and express themselves. I remember growing up and not so much, my dad wasn't so much like that, but I know other fathers, in my community that are, it's boy, or in Patois they say, boy, you not for cry, well, boy is not for cry, which in other words is saying in English is boys are not to cry. But my thing is this though, and I want to stay on this for a few moments, because there's a problem right there. If young boys are not able to express themselves, how do you expect them to learn to eventually love a young lady, to take care of their children, to be there for their children? Because they're taught from a young age not to be empathetic, not to be expressive. So now this is a 24-year-old that has a child, has a partner, and now this woman, your partner, is asking you as a young man that's never been able to express himself, or you've been penalized, and in your mind you've been taught, okay, boys don't cry. Now you're a young man, now you're a man that doesn't cry, doesn't express himself, doesn't know how to open up. Because as a child, when you were hurt, you were taught not to express. So now you've grown up. And so with that being said, down the road, as young boys, you now develop and you find other means, because just because you're taught not to express yourself doesn't mean that you don't, but we find other ways to do it. Now, for many young men, they grow up being promiscuous, looking, trying to find love and a sense of filling the void in other young ladies. So they're going from women to women, or they're finding love or filling the void in drinking alcohol or drugs and other substances, whatever the case may be. Why is that? To fill the void of a hurt, of a pain. And there's so much that can be said, so much that can be discussed, But I want to make sure that you really hit those points. Parents, I encourage you. I want to make sure I highlight that again. Listen to your children. Don't make them feel bad. Don't rush them away. I mean, I agree, respect. That's not to be thrown out the door. Our kids, your children, should respect you. However, I encourage you not to leave anything off the table. If your children want to talk to you about something that's going on in school, let them talk to you about it. That's your opportunity to have an educated conversation with them. Or if you don't even know the answer, that's an opportunity for you to allow them to share themselves, not so they don't keep it all bottled up. And it's those things that, it's just the little things. Addressing these things now so it doesn't become an issue down the road. Being able to express, being able to love others. Hug your children. And I can't emphasize that enough. You'll be surprised the amount of hugs that I get on a daily basis from kids. And I really feel happy to do it, because you know what? One of my jobs in my school and all the schools that I worked at, and I honestly can say I really value elementary a lot more. I love all the populations that I've worked with, but I found especially in elementary what they're lacking is love. So what I found is just the time that I've been there in the elementary schools that I work, which I believe is the foundational years of learning how to communicate, how to feel about yourself. So I'm giving kids compliments. I'm helping them to encourage other kids to compliment other kids. Give your kids compliments. Make them feel good about themselves so they don't feel like they have to seek approval or validation from other friends or from other, as a young man, from other women, young women, and that kind of thing. That a lot of the foundational stuff starts at home. Parents, if you're going to fight or you have arguments, no one's perfect, but try to not have those conversations in front of your children. especially our young children, it's a lot of overload for them to see their parents fighting and to see their children, arguing with each other, or to see their parents arguing with each other. It's a lot. They're wondering if mommy and daddy's going to separate. They're wondering what's going on. So they're having to go to class and be thinking about all these different things. But with all that being said, I've talked about all that part, guys, and I just want to make sure that there's so much more to this conversation, but I wanted to get a lot of the key points out so that when I come, I return the next time with more information, you all are able to, have some questions. You're able to have some more information. That was the important part of the day. It's just starting the conversation, right? Loving on our kids a little bit more, giving those compliments. Now, if you find yourself as a viewer or a listener in some situations where your children are going through some things, or you yourself or a loved one is dealing with some mental health challenges as we speak, you guys can reach out to or call 211. That's a number that's helpful for crisis. Or 911 is always an emergency, obviously most immediate, but 211 is for non-emergency but crisis situations. You can reach out to NAMI, one of the largest grassroots organizations in our country today that's dealing with and addressing mental health. NAMI stands for National Alliance on Mental Illnesses. You can do that. Also 988 is another number to utilize and have as a resource. And just some things that if you're dealing with mental health, you find yourself a little bit stressed out, find yourself depressed, or dealing with anxiety. Some common things that we can do to just improve already is just getting active. Find yourself doing some exercise, at least 30 minutes a day, walking, running. Find yourself doing, whatever your sport is, basketball, soccer, or, for many of you all, your soccer is American football and vice versa, but get out and do it. There's that. And connect with other people. Find yourself, don't just keep your stress to yourself. Call a friend, talk about stuff, get together, go out and eat, go to the beach, go relax. And I say that again for our Caribbean culture. Find time to relax. And I don't mean paying bills or doing something else. No, sit down, have some dinner with your kids, watch some TV, do those kind of things. Because you'll be surprised. The family community, I hear it on a regular basis how many of our children are they don't have time with their parents because everybody's so busy. All right? And lastly, doing your best to just be in the moment. Be in the moment, enjoying what's going on now. Those are ways that you can continue to increase your well-being. And I said rest, but try to get some sleep and eating better. It's very important to be careful of your diet. Are you eating your fruits and vegetables? Are you missing meals? Try not to miss meals. And last but not least, therapy is not a bad thing. In addition to everything else, I'm a believer in God. And I have God, but I also believe in therapy. Because there's some things that God has created these therapists with the knowledge and wisdom and understanding to assist in other areas. So once again, Nigel Johnson here. Love you all. Looking forward to speaking to you guys soon. Stay well. Be blessed.